everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. And today I'm so excited to bring back one of my dear friends. I've known him for a long time, and he's introduced me to a lot of other great influencers in the space, introduced me to some projects, and introduced me to a whole world of language and law that I didn't know about. So I want to share that with some of you guys and let you come up with your own research and opinions about if you want to apply some of that to your life. So we'll be right back with Rice TVX right after this. Rice, it is so good to see you. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. It's good to be back on the Litecoin Lisa channel. Looking forward to it. We did a conversation last week on that was going to come out this past weekend, but it came out at the beginning of this week on my other social media channels. I have I'm trying to expand out beyond YouTube due to the censorship, and so we had an uncensored conversation that we didn't have to worry about what we were saying, and I uploaded that on my Rumble channel, Odyssey, and BitChute. So I would definitely encourage people to make sure that everybody's following me on those other platforms, in particular Odyssey and Rumble, because once I get like 15 more subscribers on Rumble, I can go live. And I plan on doing a lot more exclusive live streaming over on Rumble and Odyssey versus YouTube. I'm actually going to be changing up a lot of things with my channel because I'm still in a probationary period from a strike that I got this past Friday. So I haven't been able to upload any videos, and I've been going back and forth with Team YouTube on Twitter about the violations. So I'll be careful about what I'm saying.
So one of the things people can do is go over to ricetvx.com, which will take you to your YouTube page. But then from there, see these three little arrows he's got pointing down, and you can go from there, and those will show these links. Does one of those go over to your Rumble?
No, I just got the Rumble channel straight about a week and a half ago, so I need to add that. I'm glad that you're showing that. And then also ricetvx.com in the next 48 hours shouldn't forward to my YouTube channel. I just had some issues with hosting and stuff, and I've got all that situated. So I should have my website back up by this weekend at the latest. I'm just working out the hosting issue.
Okay.
But for now, if you do go to ricetvx.com, it'll forward you here. But on Rumble, it's RiceTVX. On BitChute, it's RiceTVX. And then Odyssey, because you can't change your channel name that you created, it's under Rice Crypto.
So look at that. We've got our buddy. We've got a great threesome today.
Hey,
this is Public Awakening. Yeah, we want to bring Public in on the show today for the conversation for sure.
Good seeing you, dude.
Very cool. What's up, guys? Miss you both.
Yes, missed seeing you. We've had a lot of great shows going on. I've been sharing with people about New Eden and all the health benefits of having proper nutrition. And I know you've been sharing with me a lot of health benefits from alternative medicine, alternative health options. So you guys, there's links in the description for all that stuff too. But I wanted to really dive in today. I know we've all experienced, especially the three of us. I mean, poor Public can't even be on the Twitters at all.
They don't let me on just about anything.
He's a bad boy, and it's like I feel like I'm so much worse, and they still allow me. But
yeah, I don't get it, dude.
He just.
And Rice is constantly on Twitter arguing with the who tubes, and because he's constantly, I'm on my third, I think, YouTube channel. So super excited. I'm monetized again for a little while. I made a whole whopping $800 last year. I got a W-9.
Now, so you know this, and I would encourage you to do it. Rumble allows for you to sync your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do have that synced.
Okay. And then you can actually syndicate it back out. I don't know if you could do it back out on YouTube, but you could syndicate it out on other platforms that it allows. So you
Okay.
can look into that. And for as far as what I'm doing with my channel, I'm going to update people. I think I want to do a live stream Sunday. It might even be like a community live stream where I'm allowing people to join the show, but I'm going to update people about how I'm going to be changing things moving forward due to the censorship. And that includes like what we're going to be talking about today. I'm even going to be taking those conversations. Anything that was under the Stranger Than Fiction name, because I had the 3 shows on my channel, and the law stuff is under Stranger Than Fiction. All of that pretty much is going over to the other platforms exclusively.
And they're telling you like they don't want that content on their platform, so you're gonna comply and go take it somewhere else and put that content somewhere else.
I still use YouTube for what it is. So I'll make clips of videos that I want people to see that are exclusive, but not put the entire interview. Like I was interviewing Dean Clifford today. He's also somebody in the legal fiction law space from Canada. I was interviewing him, and 10 minutes into the interview, I'm like, I can't put this on YouTube. And at first he didn't understand why. And then as we had a conversation about it, he understood. And I've just got to play a better game of chess. And that even kind of constitutes like what we're going to be talking about today with the law stuff, because you have to know really what you're doing, which is the reason why I'm still studying and haven't really taken too many actions, because I want to be very well researched and not do something that's going to be a problem, something that I may not be able to undo.
Or make yourself a target, right?
Right. And, you definitely want to have strength in numbers as well. So I'm learning and I'm getting ready to start applying some things, but I wanted to like leave this whole thing as kind of slightly as me to provide information to people to kind of get an introduction to what we're talking about. If they're stimulated by what we're going to be talking about today, they can get basic foundation information by the stuff I'll be providing. Some books, some links, a YouTube channel, and things to that effect that people can, and even my playlist with my various interviews that I've done with the law series. But I don't encourage anybody, as many people as I've interviewed, I'm not jumping on any sort of, I haven't jumped on any particular teacher's methods and just started running with it. And there's a lot of people that as soon as they hear this for the first time, they want to start trying to implement these things. And if you really don't comprehend the law, and you really need to comprehend the law, that's a big part of this, because it's kind of a law versus legal situation, you're going to be lost.
So you wouldn't say you have it figured out, or you have a path, or, hey, come follow me. It's a, hey, come explore this with me. Don't take action. Let's learn together kind of situation.
That's how I've been for the past 2 years. Now I'm getting ready to start implementing some things, and that's where I'll be sharing more information on my channel about, and I'll also tell people, today too, like some of the individuals that I've interviewed that they can check out that I find to have more validity than others, and why. Because like I was telling you when you were on my channel, we were kind of touching on this.
Yeah.
When people talk about status correction, sometimes they're using terminologies like American citizen, some use state national, some use state citizen. And depending on what you're using, some of those terms are taken from US code, which is our law, our legal system. It's
the current legal system,
it's what the United States calls its legal system. But yes, and we can get into the whole corporate thing as well. I mean, that's an intricacy as well. I've talked to a plethora of different people that are even very freedom-minded who don't find validity to that. But and see, that's been one of the things that has been kind of conflicting, is not being able to find solid information to say, yes, this is what occurred. Because if what has occurred with this legal fiction commerce takeover of the United States, it's done it in a way that they don't want the average individual to know. Because not knowing is the easiest way for them to be able to control the situation as they have it, where we're debt-based slaves having to live under all these different codes and statutes that the governments have created, whether as a corporation or whatever, however you want to term that. I mean, that's only a portion of it. So I guess instead of me just blabbering, away, you got any specific
Yeah,
questions?
I'm curious. So if to be a starting point, are there any absolutes, or are there any known or things through your research? Are there things that you are sure of, or that you do know, that we are trapped or enslaved or beholden to, because of the way that the law is currently set up? Or I don't know if that's the best question, or should I be saying like common law versus maritime law? Maybe that's a separate question.
Or natural law. There's so many different terms of this. Rice, this is something that you've been touching on for years now. I found it really interesting, and there's so many parts of it that I really wish are true, and we can start working towards this and shifting over our lives. There's a few things that I found over the years to lead me to believe that this really has a lot of validity, and we can actually do this. One was the birth certificate thing. I know you had spent some time with the birth certificates for a while. I have 2 copies of my birth certificate. One is the original one, I think from the hospital itself before it was sent into the state or the county, wherever it goes. That one's not in all capitals. I have the other one from the state that's in all capitals. This was one of the things that I thought, wow, that I remember Rice talking about this. This is 2 different entities here. This is 2 different people almost, per se. And the other was that we've all heard the movie, what was it? Die Hard, where it was a diplomatic immunity. I think maybe it wasn't. You're right. So there are entities, there are people who do have immunity from the laws. And even if you just Google what is diplomatic immunity, it's there. The laws of this land don't apply to this person, because however that works. So if diplomats can have it, and the people in the vicinity or the land of Washington, D.C., why can't those same people have that sort of thing working for them right now too? That was something I always thought of, like, how are they getting away with it? How are they, how is this happening?
Right.
The laws don't apply. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I think these are maybe 2 different ways that we can start touching on, if you guys don't have any specific.
Yeah. Okay. Well, real quick, let me just, I'll backtrack, but the diplomatic immunity thing, mainly for what we would be familiar with, would be somebody who comes from another country with a diplomat status, whether their father, mother was an ambassador or something to that effect. So when they come here, our laws don't necessarily apply to them, but if those individuals are causing harm, then there's going to be a problem. I mean, those individuals can't go around murdering people.
Right.
Drinking and driving is even questionable, because I've heard of a lot of people with diplomatic immunity still getting in trouble because they're potentially causing harm to others, especially if there was an accident and things like that involved. But if they're doing something that there's no victim, there's no real harm being done, I can see where the law wouldn't apply to them. Now, that's kind of
that's similar to common law, right? Because those same rules apply in common law, that if I'm not harming another person, then you're supposed to be able to be like saying I'm outside your jurisdiction.
That's a lot of what they say now. When I've been doing studying from the law aspect, I mean, there is British common law, and there are things written about British common law, and that was something that was adopted by the founding fathers within our legal, or I shouldn't say legal, our judicial system, because we had the judicial branch. So you want to deal with things that are law related, things that are lawful, not legal necessarily, because there are things that are illegal that are lawful, as complicated as that is. But the root of it all, the problem.
Can you explain the difference of lawful and illegal, lawful and legal?
Well, a law is kind of what we would think about in terms of a common law. The things that people are common to know are the things that people aren't supposed to do. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It used to be like when a child was growing up in the town square, they would post the laws up. It wasn't as if there was so many different statutes and codes that they couldn't put all these things down in a town square, where every individual with simple English could fully understand what the rules of that local society were. And those are when we think about common law, it's the law that's common to the people. So it doesn't
law
always
of the land kind of thing.
It is listed in the land type jurisdiction as well. I mean, there are some people who talk about law standing for land, air, and water. But if you look at that from another language, that doesn't necessarily compute. But the English language was kind of created as this bastardized language to keep the people stupid. And it is becoming almost the world language. Most people around the world do speak English, and there are non-American countries that have English as their primary language as well. So that's where a lot of this trickery begins, is with the language, with the legal ease.
So it's not only we are speaking the English language. In doing so, we're also adopting the laws of the land as we speak.
We are, but the laws of the land that we have been turned into codes and statutes based off statutory law. So the law has shifted. This is where things kind of get confusing with trying to explain it in a very simplified way, because there's a lot of different ways that you can begin with it. But from my perspective, the easiest way to explain this from the United States perspective is we had these group of individuals that we call the founding fathers that found this nation as a republic. And it served as a republic up until a certain point, and it seems as if that shifted into a democracy. And that democracy is controlled by the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., which was only supposed to be a territory where it's at that was only supposed to take care of protecting each state as far as security and commerce and things to that effect. It was like 19 different enumerations that the Constitution gave the federal government power of, but it was limited only in the fact of Washington, D.C. as far as the power structure. Something happened during the Civil War and up until that point. So a lot of people think that we won the Civil War and we broke away from the UK. And that's not really what happened. It may have looked like we broke away from the British crown, as in like the King or Queen of England, but we were still attached to the Crown Incorporated, which would be the city of London, your financial district. That's where the Rothschilds operate. It's its own sovereign district inside of London, inside the UK, inside of Britain, as almost the same thing as the Vatican City is a sovereign entity and Washington, D.C. is a sovereign entity. They're all sovereign states. They're not beholden to a specific nation. So during the Civil War, or in between the creation of our nation and the Civil War, there were many attempts for the banking system to try to get the United States to be beholden to their wishes. So we won the Revolutionary War, but because we had the first charter of the bank happen under George Washington, that charter ended. When that ended, we weren't renewing it. The Rothschilds and the city of London were really pissed off. So we ended up having the War of 1812, and Washington, D.C. was burned down. The White House was burned down. The Constitution, all the information was killed. That's why people talk about different constitutions, like a constitution for the United States or a constitution of the United States.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Now, Andrew Jackson paid off our debt. He was like the 7th or 11th president. He paid off of our debt, which isn't really much to say if we've only been a nation for less than 100 years, but paid off our debt, got rid of the second attempt at central banking, which was chartered for both. I think we're chartered for like 20 years. So that was done. Then we had the Civil War take place. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Instead of a reformation or a restoration of our republic, which is what we were taught in history, at least I was taught here in the United States, or restoring of our republic, what it appeared to be was a takeover of the federal government. And you can go back, and I encourage people to really explore history. This book right here you can get from Amazon for like $10-15. It's called The Documents of, I don't even want to like say that word in case it triggers anything.
Okay.
But it has Common Sense, The Complete Federalist, Anti-Federalist Papers, the Articles of Confederation. I'm not sure why it says that twice. The U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Another thing that I would encourage people to check out is, and you can get this for less than $10 on Amazon, and I think there's a PDF. So if you look at the title that I want to show you and put in free PDF in a search, you should be able to find the free PDF of this. It's called the American Citizens Manual of Reference. So up until the 14th Amendment, there was no U.S. citizenship status. So after the Civil War and the seemingly takeover of the federal government, then we had the Act of 1871, where people say that that incorporated Washington, D.C., along with some of the things that Abraham Lincoln did under executive orders with the Lieber Code, extended out the territories of Washington, D.C. And the idea was basically everything was broken up into federal districts, which it is. So if you go into a federal court in where you live, you're basically walking into D.C. But really, the entirety of DC has been extended out. That's why everything's broken into federal districts. It didn't used to be that way because the federal government didn't have that power. So the thing that I was saying that's really important about these early founding father documents is the anti-federalist papers and the federalist papers, because you had individuals that were for the federalists, strong central government, and then the anti-federalists who were for not so strong central government, which would have been more government from your bottom up versus your top down. You know, like the way the states are supposed to govern themselves. But then we have laws that are put in the United States that are made federal on a illegal basis. And then you have it where the state makes it lawful. And cannabis is a good example. And so because it is illegal and the banking system is all federal, that those businesses can't utilize the banking system.
Right.
But they're not doing anything illegal per the state, only per the federal government. That's where the most recent overturning of a certain Supreme Court decision makes a lot of sense, because it's giving power back to the state. Not the issue of what the situation was about, but it puts things back in state rights. And, you know, do you think that you individually can make more change on a local level or on a national level? So we can make that kind of change. So now, Civil War, federal government takeover, Act of 1871, late 1800s, we start having the creation of birth certificates. And then it gets, we have 19th, and I'm just kind of going through this a little quickly. 1913, we had the creation of the Federal Reserve and the IRS and taxation of income. 1933 is when we had the Banking Act, the Securities Exchange Commission created, SEC, the securities created, gold confiscation, and the creation of the Social Security number. That's where it seems like this commerce system really got sealed. It seemed as if there were different courts throughout the United States that did operate in a common law capacity. But it's not common law. But it's not the common law that people talk about. It's similar, but it's not, because some things in common law aren't written because it's supposed to be common to us.
But the birth certificate was almost a test run of the Social Security number. And that's where, when I look at, you know, what I went through with running the weed business and all that, and the licensing and what I learned from that. And then, so my dad, his father was the number one and part of getting licensing for doctors in the state of Oklahoma, implementing licensing. And he taught my papa that it was more powerful to be outside of law. And he taught him how to fold a dollar bill and hand it to the politicians, and how powerful that was. And so when you hearing all of this and understanding the stories, and then being in the car with Ben and doing my educating Lisa hours, putting in my hours on the road with Ben, traveling all over this beautiful country, and learning about how, you know, the mob, the mafia used to police their own villages or their own communities.
Yeah.
And they took care of their, their communities. And then somebody else wanted those little bumps and payouts. And so they came in and said, nope, we're going to put on uniforms, just like lab coats, like the doctors do. We're going to put on uniforms and we're the police. And now you need a license and you got to pay for that license. You got to pay the middleman to have the license so we can protect you. And if you look at it, it's the same story. It's a bully that is saying, no, wait, we're writing the rules and we are going to be the middleman and we're going to create a environment or a structure where we're going to insert ourselves as you're all of a sudden, you're not free. And we're the rule
legal
makers.
crime. It's legalized.
Absolutely.
Legalized crime.
It's the same thing that the regulators are doing right now over crypto, where there is no legislation created right now. And they are regulating without legislation. They're swatting without legislation being there. They're saying, nope, we're the rule makers. And so we're going to come in and make some rules where there are none. And you got to deal with us. So it's very interesting to watch that. So if we could go back even to the point of, like, do we have to go back to the point of even shaking off our birth certificate?
And see, that's part of what I'm learning. There are one of the guys that I've interviewed that seems to make a lot more sense and backs it up with factual information is a guy named KL.
Okay.
And he was on SGT Report maybe a month and a half ago or so. And because of that, Cliff High saw it and Ben saw it. Cliff made a video talking about a little bit of this stuff. Now, if I can do a screen share, I want to pull up. There we go. Okay, so this video, can you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is Cliff High's BitChute channel. I encourage you guys to go over and subscribe. The video called Narradigm Investigations Law, talking about which law, talking about these two books I mentioned, and I got those books that I want to share with people too. Let me see here. So if you want to go back, I'll do another screen share here in a minute, but I just wanted to point that out from Cliff High because I know a lot of people that watch your channel are Cliff High fans. So the two books that he mentions, and I encourage people to check these books out, but on the same context, these books aren't going to give you the answers. It's going to give you some foundational knowledge, which is more of what I'm going to be sharing today. So this book right here, and I'll send you the links, but you guys can see the title, Meet Your Straw Man, and whatever you want to know, We the People. You can find it on Amazon. It's like $5 or $6. You can also go to the nationallibertyalliance.org, which is on the back of the website, nationallibertyalliance.org. That's the first book that Cliff mentions. This is the second book, The UCC Connection, How to Free Yourself from Legal Tyranny. UCC is Uniform Commercial Code. It is it's a law system that was created to make all laws in different states common so that you didn't have too many problems with commerce with states' laws changing and varying so much. So Uniform Commercial Code. And some people use UCC in some of the aspects of the legal fiction. Some people use things in regards to something called special party creditors, SPC. I'm still researching these elements. Now, the first thing I will tell people is I didn't get into this because of any financial gain or trying to get out of any financial issues. If that comes with the territory, it's icing on the cake. I'm doing this for sovereignty, almost like what we were saying earlier. Diplomatic immunity would be kind of what I'm striving for. But how do I do that? Not being a diplomat from another nation. That's been the journey. So the birth certificate thing, to kind of get back to that, when the banks kind of took over the United States, because we've been in debt to the banks for quite some time, since we had to borrow money from France in the Revolutionary War. It was said that we were borrowing money from French bankers that were part of the Rothschilds clique. So that still just puts us back under the crown. And that's essentially what's been going on, is this battle to get away from the bankers. But because of what we experienced in the 1930s after the creation of the Federal Reserve, the income tax, the IRS, and the Great Depression, the stock market crash, and all that, that's when everything shifted over. Because it seemed as if there were some courts that would have operated under a common law jurisdiction. But at some point, those courts were taken over by statutory law, commerce. It's what people would associate with maritime admiralty. Now, I did an interview with the guy, and I encourage people to check out the interview, and there's a lot of valuable information he provides, but I don't agree with everything he says. He's a bar attorney in Florida, and we have a conversation because he teaches people a course that's called How to Win in Court. Okay. And if people check out my video, I've got a referral link for the course, and I would encourage people to use my referral link.
Is this what you're sharing on your?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share that real quick, because this is my playlist for my law series. So people go to Rice TVX on YouTube, you go to my playlist section, click on the law series, and the last two videos are the ones that I would really encourage you to focus on. Then I would encourage people just to go through the videos, listen what these variety of different people that I interview are talking about. Find what resonates with you. And I'm going to be doing update videos, like the third one from the bottom that says In Search of the Legal Fiction. I want to do an update to that to let people know more about some of the things that I'm going to be doing, attempting, and trying. But it's taken me this long to really, truly feel comfortable with moving forward. Because to give you an example, this guy from the Simplifying the Rule of Law, the How to Win in Court video, he does not agree with anything that I'm talking about with status correction, the United States being a corporation, or any of those things. Does not agree with it at all. But he teaches you how to understand and operate in the court system. He says that the Bar Association doesn't stand for British Accreditation Registry or whatever people are saying it stands for. He's like 79, 80 years old down in I thought he was in Florida. I was going to say that, but he's not in Florida. But he said, if anybody was to want to come to where he lives and say to his face that he pled an oath to the Queen of England with the Bar Association, that he would whoop their ass.
Oh my.
And this is an old dude. So, that's conflicting information from what I'm being taught. But then the next interview down, The Great Legal Deception, that's the most recent interview I did with KL. So after KL did the appearance on SGT, I asked KL, I said, let's continue on with the education. And then I was going to, because the first interview was a year and a half ago, I was going to have to go back and listen to 4.5 hours worth of videos to catch up and get current. So I asked KL, I was like, can we start fresh? And
everyone else would have needed a reset too.
So this one, I was like, can we just start over? Can we do a refresh and just start from the beginning? Because I have more information that I've gained. You've got more information that you've added to your lesson. Can we start fresh? Did you have a chance to watch that by chance?
I have not. No, okay. We're driving to Westwoods this weekend. We have it's our anniversary. It's very romantic. Okay. We're going to see friends
that's awesome.
for our anniversary. And so I have a whole playlist of stuff that we're watching for 10 hours.
Well, this video is like 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'll send people the documents from the video. If you watch the video, I explain how to receive the documents. He goes over all the information from Supreme Court cases that distinguish differences in citizenship, which would be when the 14th Amendment was created and everybody was made U.S. citizens. Some people said that was to make the slaves free and give them a status. But what ultimately happened was everybody is made into a U.S. citizen. And from what I'm researching and from what I'm understanding is being a U.S. citizen puts you under the jurisdiction of the corporation of the United States, the federal government that took over the republic.
Yes, it's my understanding the word citizen, when you look it up or do the work on it, citizen makes you beholden to
like a municipality,
the municipality,
the local law system or whatever it is. Yeah, that's why when people talk about the term sovereign citizen, it's an
Yeah, it's an
oxymoron, like I was telling
oxymoron.
you.
Yeah. You can say sovereign, like you
Just
want to be
sovereign, like that's
sovereign, just
because
sovereign,
that's similar to
free, sovereign, but not
and if I was to
citizen.
say to somebody, I'm trying to achieve my sovereignty, or I'm trying
Yes.
to achieve some sort of diplomatic immunity, I'm going to get people understanding the diplomatic immunity thing more than sovereignty. Sovereignty is going to throw them off. They're going to be like, what
But
are you
will
trying to become a
diplomatic
king?
immunity be confusing because then they would think you're a diplomat or
And so, okay, now
related
this
to a
is where
diplomat
things can get
and or
weird.
you're associating with another another government.
See, you have I did an interview, several interviews, this guy right here, David Williams, and I have a playlist that's just his videos. This guy does not believe in status correction, corporation, United States, none of that stuff, no trust stuff, none of that. What he does is he's a prime minister for a micronation. It's called the Dominion of Melchizedek, and they call it the Dom. The Dom, when it first started out,
Melchizedek, isn't that like a satanic thing?
no, Melchizedek's from the Bible. It was somebody that Abraham paid tithe to. He was the Prince of Salem. So he wasn't in the Bible. Melchizedek was not a bad figure. So, but it's called the Dominion of Melchizedek. They have a small remote island. I don't even think that's even habitable. That's somewhere in the South Pacific Ocean. But what they are doing, when the micronation was first formed, people that were involved with it apparently weren't so upfront with some of the things they were doing, and some people got arrested. But this guy, David Williams, became a part of this after all the bad publicity stuff, became the ambassador. He's working with some African nations where he's helping to donate money to help with education systems, sending clothes and books and stuff over to these African nations, because you can develop diplomatic relationships. When you have other countries that can recognize your nation in a diplomatic sense, the more of them that do that, the more that you can actually be welcome into the system as a recognized nation.
Okay.
So there is a passport for the Dominion of Melchizedek, but no country technically recognizes it. You can get all kinds of passports, but whether or not the nation that you're trying to enter in is even going to recognize that passport's even legitimate or real is a different
What was the
thing.
one that Berwick did a lot? He was part of or was talking about, this was years ago when we first got into crypto, like in 2017.
A lot of what he was talking about was
secondary
citizenship stuff. It wasn't necessarily, and part of it was expatriation. But now, so this website, and I'll send you the links for all this stuff so you can include it in the video description.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of individuals that teach about this law versus legal fiction stuff talk about state citizenship passport. Now, I know the citizen is a word that we talked about not utilizing, but some people have discussed that this is a way that you can correct your status. I'm not saying that it is an answer for people to utilize, but it is something that people can look into and read and find out what they're saying, because there's a lot of information. There's case information. They're showing a lot of examples of stuff that people should be aware of. This is something that I am going to look a little bit more in depth with some other individuals and possibly apply for a passport using this method. But I'm not telling anybody who's watching this.
So you don't see any risk of that?
Not with this, no. So far I haven't, but I haven't taken a step yet. So I would encourage people that are really interested to check out my channel and follow my journey with it, because I will be updating people. I'm going to be going up to the passport office, and I'm going to try to talk to some people and just try to really share some of this information with them on the low as much as possible, and see what they say, see if I get anything from them from that, because I can't really think of any other way to really determine, because I'm somebody like, you can have some people that teach this kind of stuff and say that their methods work, and they may not have done anything to technically get into any sort of trouble to even find out if what they're doing actually works. I'm going to. I'm going to do what I can to get my ID, whatever, in front of a cop, and I want them to run that shit. I want to know what it says. I want to know that what I'm doing is actually working, and it's not me thinking it's working because I haven't gotten any trouble. I mean, if you don't do anything to get any trouble, you're not going to find any. That's what I told KL, because KL is an older guy. I'm like, you're not doing anything to like test this out. If anything, I told him I would grab your ID and go run up to a cop and be like, I think this guy's a child molester. Can you run his ID?
Oh my gosh. Well, you could do something else.
You get what I'm saying. But I would ask a cop, can you run this ID? Because he's telling me the ID is going to say do not detain. And if it does, I'm sure you're going to be curious as to how this guy has an ID that says do not detain. That's why, like, if you see right here, it does talk about diplomatic immunity. But again, I'm encouraging people to do their own research. Foundational
has
knowledge.
To know a police officer that's a friend that says, have you ever ran an ID that it comes up and says do not detain? Or were you trained?
They are trained about the sovereign citizen and free man on the land stuff. Yes. If I was to start throwing out certain verbiage, they would automatically put me in that category, and they call it pseudo law. They say there's no legitimacy to it. So the legal system obviously is not recognizing it. And then you have some people who are like, well, they're not going to tell all the cops and they're not going to tell all the judges. But I'm like, if the system is operating like this, the people that are operating the system need to know.
Yeah.
So with the birth certificate, people say that there's a trust account that's created in your straw man's name. And when I say straw man, the other thing is that there's an artificial entity that supposedly is created at your birth. Now, that's where some of this gets weird, because they're saying what's written on the birth certificate and social security number isn't you, the man. It's the artificial commerce legal fiction that was created for you to act in the commerce system.
It's the all capitals entity, not the living human, correct?
And that's what they say. Now, this all comes back from Roman law. And this YouTube channel right here, Justinian Deception, and I've talked to you about this channel before, Lisa. This channel, now they're from Australia. They're not putting out videos right now because they're both, the two guys that deal with this channel are terrified of the law at this point. One of them was incarcerated for over a year and a half, was held without any charges. And then in order for him to get out, they made him plead guilty to certain other charges and then monitor. They said he can't put out content like this, so they don't let him do it. So this guy who you see in the picture, his name is Romley Stewart. He's not the one that was arrested, that was in jail. But because of what happened to his partner and local police threatening his family, Romley is starting to like back away. He hasn't deleted the channel, but they're in a place in Australia that apparently is not really kosher at all. He lives in a storage container in the woods. It's got electricity and all these kind of things, but he lives off grid. And I've been trying to get him on my channel, but he's absolutely terrified because of the repercussions of getting more messages out. But with that being said, I would encourage people to go check the channel out and start watching these videos from the very first video. As you can see, it's not like there's a shit ton of videos. It's less than 100. And some of the videos are like average of 20 minutes long. But if you start from the beginning, it starts giving you basic information about what took place in a general way that took place to all the different countries in the world. But if there is a way for us to achieve a diplomatic immunity type status, it's not going to be the same path in every single country because we have different sort of legal systems. It's not as if everything in the United States is the same in other countries. So there are differences in law systems or in the legal system as far as what they recognize as being legal and illegal. But Justinian Deception is, to me, the best foundational knowledge. You'll get a really good idea of where the Romans were, of how the Romans were utilizing all this. When it talks about all roads leads back to Rome, this all kind of goes back. It goes back further, but Rome would be the easiest point in history for us to be able to relate to.
So I've heard people say like, okay, if this has happened and it's going to be straightened out, then it's going to be straightened out for everyone. And I don't need to do anything. I don't need to take personal responsibility and take action and do anything. What are your thoughts on that about like, where are people's personal responsibility lie in this situation?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, technically, we should be trying to get involved in politics, possibly making sure you're voting for people that will represent your voice. And I know what people are going to talk about with that system. When I interviewed KL, something that KL said that it might trigger some people. I'm not saying this is in a negative way, but a lot of people were putting hope into Mr. T. And I'm not saying anything negative. What I'm saying is that KL stated that if Mr. T's idea was to restore the Republic of the United States of America and get rid of or minimize the federal government, he could have done that during his term in office. But it didn't happen. So I can't 100% say that's 100% of what the goals were on that end. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying, per what KL was saying, based off his knowledge of American history and the law and the legal system, he said it could have been done he could have done it in his term. So I'm just not quite sure. There are some people who think that the white hats are going to restore the Republic and that all this will be good. That's trusting a plan per se. And I think people need to be proactive. I think people need to start standing up for things that they believe in. We need to start putting pressure on our politicians as much as possible because they are supposed to be public servants.
Right.
So I think that,
to do that, we have to have the knowledge. We have to educate ourselves so that we can have these conversations about what happened in the past, know our history, make choices for our future, and educate people around us. So I think that's what you're doing.
After having this conversation, I'm hoping that the people that are watching, that this isn't been like too crazy the way that it's been presented. I would like to find ways of focusing on certain areas and then kind of staying in those areas and then moving on to other areas, because it's when I feel like I've just got to explain this.
Well, I think today was kind of a broad overview. I'd love for you to come back and have more conversations. Maybe we can do one a month or something and kind of move forward with Public and I and kind of drill down on more of this, especially as you're kind of having your experience with moving forward on that state piece or different experiences. And as we're all learning together, because I really think that there's a lot more to this going on in all different realms.
There is.
And I'm curious, even in our community in the chat, we have a really active community in our live chat, and we're building, we started a lair over on Den. If you're over on Den, I will tip you some lot. So you will be a lair owner of the Mighty Lair. Since you're anybody that comes on and does a show with me, I want you to be a part owner in the Mighty Lair. So I'll go over and tip you over there as well. If you're not already, go sign up and I'll be sure to tip you. Public, you need to go sign up on Den. You can finally be on some social media with us.
Real quick, I just want to add something too with the kind of like the confusion in a sense, trying to explain this. When I started going down this rabbit hole and like really diving into it hard, I started interviewing a lot of different people who claim to have a way to freedom. And you have a lot of conflicting information from different groups of teachers. Some of them don't agree with other ones. Some of it, I feel, is ego is involved. You're not finding a lot of unity in the freedom scene, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's a lot more division. And so if you just stick with like listening to one person, you're not going to get the full gist of the story or a full comprehension of what's going on. And the more people you listen to, the more confused you're going to get.
And there may not be one path for everyone. If we think about the big case that was recently settled in the Supreme Court that we were talking about earlier that put the decision back to the states. Depending on where you live, there may be a different path for you. We
Well,
don't
it's
know. We don't know what the answer is
from
right
a
now.
different country, I would say for sure.
Or
I'm not sure.
country, yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
don't
that there
know.
would be, and I could be wrong. I'm not sure that there would be multiple methods in the same jurisdiction per se.
Okay.
But the other thing that I really want to get at with the confusion is that, and this is what people really need to be careful for, is I feel like there's a lot of controlled opposition, people that are placed in these positions to purposely put out misinformation to try to keep people away from the truth. And the best way you do that is mixing it in with lies. So you got to sift through the lies.
Sure.
And then I started to come to the conclusion that all of this, like when you start looking at the different rabbit holes, you realize it's one big rabbit hole. And at the root cause of everything is spiritual warfare, in my opinion. So
I agree to that completely.
You know, that's where I find there's validity in this. It's just sifting through the lies. And part of that too is, you know, I'm even saying this to myself, is developing a stronger relationship with source, with God, however you want to identify that. Developing that relationship so that you can have that discernment, so that when you are looking through things, you can just see through the bullshit that it is and get the truth. And that, I think, is a lot of our problem, is just not being as connected and trying to look at information, hoping to find the truth when we're not aligned with the truth enough to fully see the truth for what it is, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. You're not asking the right person for the truth. That goes so much hand in hand with yesterday's show when Sean introduced me to and introduced the community to Keith Waring. And he was talking about how, you know, the great infection hit and he went down this rabbit hole and he was like, oh my gosh, you know, I was learning all this rabbit hole stuff. And all of a sudden he thought he was getting into disinformation. And what's interesting is just the week before I was on the show with the World Blockchain Roundtable guys, and they posted this meme and it showed, you know, the 3-letter agency people saying, doing like MK Ultra on somebody or something. And it was like, no, what was it? It was like a truther or whatever conspiracy theorist tells the normie this about MK Ultra and things like that. And the normies go, oh my goodness, you know, whatever. And then it shows like 3-letter agency pouring more stuff into the conspiracy theorist head. And then that was disinformation. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you made them tip over. And now no one believes you because you're so far over that now they believe nothing you say. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think too, like there are some, I think when again, with controlled opposition, I'm not going to mention anybody's name here specifically, but you have an individual who became a really large content creator in a very short amount of time. And this individual can easily be discredited in a lot of ways. It just hasn't happened on a large scale level. And the more that occurs, anybody who's been associating themselves with this individual that could be controlled opposition is going to be made to look bad because of the association. So a lot of their messages will get diluted as well, if that makes any sense. Like you can have truth seeker YouTubers or whatever that really aren't, you know, of the side of the light or the good guys and are just infiltrating. A lot of times when people think that they have sources and things like that, those sources could be exactly what you're saying. It could be government agents that know how to attach themselves on social media, because there's so many people, and it's so sad. So many people are so gullible and believe everything. That's why I'm trying to tell people, like, even with this legal fiction journey, as good as it sounds, don't just start doing some stuff tomorrow. Like, really know what you're doing, because you could be being set up to put yourself in a bad position, labeling yourself, identifying yourself as something that the government may not want around in the future. So just people need to be very smart about what they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's not seditious. It's in fact the opposite. It would be the most patriotic thing that we can do, but it's actually showing real proof to the everyday individual that the federal government has taken over everything and that we've lost our republic. I mean, how do we go from being a republic to a democracy? How do you go from going to court and you committed a crime and you should be the offender, but you're going to court as a defender? There's a lot of things that I just don't quite get, that you can ask these simple questions to judges and cops and you're not going to get a solid answer.
Yeah. Right. We have got to have you on again. This was so interesting. All these questions have just been coming up. I think we're facing this, time in our country and in the world where things are changing, and I'm really grateful. I know you've been looking into this for years and doing the work and having these conversations, and so I think you're a great resource to the community, and everybody can really learn a lot. You can go to ricetvx.com.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Do.
Now, what I was talking about, I don't have a lot of 100% evidence to say, yes, these things are factually true, but there are solutions of things that I'm looking at, and I want to encourage other people to be looking at as well. And the more people that are in the same mindset, the more that we can make a difference, regardless of what I said has no legitimacy to it at all. And that is looking into the word agorism, agorism, agorism or agorist, however you want to look at it. But it basically is dealing with counter economics and parallel societies. So we can create our own parallel societies, and counter economics is basically just not utilizing the systems that the world
and then
has
they
given
can
us.
make all the rules they want for typewriters.
Sure.
And we just won't use them.
Right. That's the way it works. So, I mean, there are solutions out there beyond what I was talking about, but I definitely encourage people to do the research with it. But the idea of counter economics, which would be us using our own systems that don't involve the legacy government central bank systems, and create our own parallel societies. And that could be coming together with community farming in different areas and being able to provide food for different areas and doing trading. There's a lot of different things that we can do coming together. I mentioned the last time we were together, freedomcells.org and peoplesrights.org. I encourage people to check out both websites as ways for people to get connected up with people in their local areas and nationally. So on a local level, state level, and national level, you can get connected with people. I'm trying to bring those two platforms together in some symbiotic relationship because they will give us ways to communicate as a parallel society. We can create our own marketplaces utilizing these platforms. And I'm also going to be trying to integrate a blockchain project that will allow for us to create our own intranet, which is like a private internet for us that would allow for end-to-end encrypted messaging and things to that effect, because I think that we're going to need to have those kind of tools available for us. So there are solutions.
I mean, you see what's happening in Iran right now. That's where projects like Oxen are providing, messaging for them. Those
Ocean Waves was asking about Mark Christopher, and at this time I've interviewed Russell J. Gould a few times, and I don't endorse Russell J. Gould or anybody in the quantum grammar community. And this kind of will show you a lot of the differences and where people have disagreements about what is the way to move forward. I would encourage people not to waste their time with anything related that has to do with this thing called the quantum grammar, which is a fictitious language that was created by two individuals, one that I just mentioned. And Mark Christopher, he's another one of these guys. He's claiming to be the Postmaster General of the world in the UK. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So he's very
save
intelligent.
Yourself, you guys.
He seems to be very intelligent, but again, you just got to be careful about who you're listening to and who you're learning from.
This is where we're trying to bring you information that you can do the research and save yourself.
I heard TPA is one of the postmasters too.
I'm the postmaster of TP-Aytonville. It's a
you go.
small island in the Pacific.
In Jersey.
Yeah.
All right,
in
you
the
guys-
Russell J. Gould's the
Coast of
guy though that
Jersey.
ripped off Pimpy. I don't know if Pimpy ever told you that story.
Really?
He did.
Yeah.
Pimpy paid him
I know you know about it.
$1,500
TPA.
for a course, and then he just kind of ghosted on him.
No, it was like $3,000 to do some work on
Oh, that's right. That's right.
it was to do with I don't know if it was a loan or his contract for the home. I don't know what it was specifically, but whatever he was hired to do, he never did. One of the guys that was vetting and trying to help do a real introduction to the military of who Russell J. Gould was this guy, Sergeant Robert Horton. And he's friends with Pimpy. They live in the same area. Sergeant's wife used to work with Pimpy. And when they found about Russell J. Gould and Russell started coming to the sergeant's house, is how Pimpy ended up hanging out and meeting Russell J. Gould. This is
should we
before
do
I
proof
did.
of pants before we end? I gotta go.
Yeah,
I'm
do you
gonna
have pants on?
birthday dinner with my friend. Yeah.
I got my pajama pants
Proof
on.
of pants. Proof of pants.
Proof of pants. Oh,
Public,
see,
you have to stand up and do proof of pants.
He's like, are we allowed to?
Yeah,
I got proof of pajama pants.
And my vintage Litecoin Summit shirt from 2018. I'm just saying I classed it up today a little bit. One quick thing about Pimpy. He lost both of his channels. He lost all of his subscribers. He's struggling to get subscribers back. He's only at about 300 and change.
So where is he right now? Everybody go follow Pimpy.
He started a new channel. It's called The Other Side of Things. If you search that, join it up, help our friend Pimpy out. He's only up to 300 and some subscribers at this point. He puts out a lot of great work also, just like everyone who we have on the channel here. And, give Pimpy.
Yeah, no, I need to get in touch with Pimpy and find out what happened to his channel.
Yeah, so go follow The Other Side of
hard.
Things. Find Pimpy. He's got great information. All right, love to you all. Thanks so much. Take care.
Ciao.